Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mondays are back, and back with a bang as well. It is round one of the Euro Masters Season 2, and we are greeted with a damp Imola to start the first qualifying session of the season. My name is Ryan Gill. I'm your lead host for the season, and alongside me to make it the Ryan and Ryan show indeed, it is Ryan Mawson on this lovely Monday evening. How are you doing tonight, Ryan?
Oh, recovering from the weekend, but otherwise looking forward to some great racing. Obviously, Imola, probably one of my favourite tracks, as much as a lot of people don't seem to like it. But looking out of the window as well, the commentary box, that is certainly an interesting track to start us off. Damp mixed with GT4s on cold tyres. That's going to be a bit of a tricky one for these drivers.
It definitely is. The Euro Masters, which definitely had quite a big impact on the Monday Championships last year, has, of course, come back, and we've got a bit of a change-up this season. We have a tweaked calendar, some shorter races, but we've added the GT4s to the mix as well. If you're unfamiliar with the Euro Masters, it is exclusively continental European manufacturers. No British manufacturers, no Japanese manufacturers, no American manufacturers. It is purely continental Europe. So, of course, that means we have things like the BMW, the Lamborghini, the Ferrari, the Porsche, the Mercedes, the Audi. We've got Alpine out here as well. And it is absolutely fantastic to see all these different manufacturers out. We'll be asking the big question, Ryan Mawson, which is, which European manufacturer will reign supreme in each class?
Absolutely, and with the mix of drivers looking good down the field between each, especially the GT4 pack, it is really going to be interesting. Obviously, you have to pick your car for the season, so where you might struggle on some tracks, I think their cars are really going to come back into it, and I'm glad to see some Alpines as well. It's a car that not many people pick in the GT4. Is the sort of the Buzzbox go-kart. It's small, it's nippy, but I know quite a few drivers who don't get on with it, but for on board for the first lap, this is Bart Matcher, the Connection Lost Racing, in as a typical an Audi. I would have expected nothing less from Bart.
Yep, for the Euro Masters as well, we're of course using both the GT3 and GT4 classes, so that means we have a split qualifying session. The GT4s go out for the first 10 minutes of the qualifying session, then there's that intermediary minute where the GT4s can finish up any flying laps they started within their section. And then, of course, for the final 10 minutes, it is the GT3s that go out on track and they will set their best lap. So basically, each class gets 10 minutes to go out there and put the fastest time down. The GT3s, Ryan, they're going to be in the, rather fortunate situation of having the GT4s go out ahead of them, because they're going to be able to try and lay down a drier line on the track immediately, whereas, the GT4s, unfortunately, already on the cold tyres you've mentioned, but now they also have to deal with the fact that they have to go out and make the dry line.
And that especially makes it interesting in qualifying, because I think, the faster strategy at the start, obviously, is going to be on those wet tyres. But as it dries up, the rain that we did have has since passed. As you can see, the BMW in front already snaking all over the place. The painted surface is still not available to touch. But yeah, the GT3s are going to be loving it. The poor GT4s are probably going to have to make the decision midway through. If these wets start burning up, do you go for the slicks and do you just pump them up to oblivion and hope that you can get that slightly better lap in? Or do you just keep chewing away at the wets and hope to God that they've still got some grip by the end of the lap?
Well, we saw Floris Hardwood set the very first lap in the GT4 class. Unfortunately, that has been beaten now by the 120 of Calandrino up into the 155s with his very first lap. Bart Matcher as well, quite a ways off of that, about 1.4 seconds just under. And we see Martin Ulrich and Mikael Sundstrom now come across the line as well. So some of the GT4s now starting to get those initial laps in. We have 16 GT4s in attendance here tonight, and we have over 20 GT3s on track as well. It's going to make it very, very interesting. We have a 1 hour race with 1 mandatory pit stop, 57-minute pit window. And the GT3s are going to have to deal with the GT4s at least once in this race, maybe twice. Not entirely sure. We'll have to see as the race will go on after qualifying, but it's going to be, you know, a real test out there in a sprint race scenario, isn't it, Ryan, for some of these GT3s to show how well they can navigate the slower traffic.
Yeah, space on this track at the start as well is going to be at a premium because the GT4s obviously will start behind the pack. But a lot of times, as the leading GT4 driver, if you get tangled up with some of the slower back of the pack GT3s, that can actually give away your lead if you can't, if you can't manage the traffic. So the GT4s as well, I'd say that they've got their work cut out right at the start. The GT3s later on as they navigate the traffic. By then, they might have had a little bit more of a spread out, but looking at some of these times, first and second only separated by 1/10 of a second. I think those times are going to just come down and down as more of a drier line forms.
Well, as we continue to watch on qualifying at the moment, 7 minutes into the session, just about 3 minutes left, and a few of the GT4s yet to set up laps yet. We're watching Jordan Daly at the moment in the 197 for the Triple R Academy team, and there's quite a few Triple R teams in this particular race here tonight, Ryan. We've got Harry Conway and Billy Octane in the GT3 class, and then we've got the likes of Phil Roberts and Jordan Daly filling out the GT4 class. So they've got 2 drivers in each to give themselves the best possibility, and I believe they've also got Jesse Lee down in the AM class for today. Of course, the AM split not being broadcasted, unfortunately, but they've got their fingers in a multitude of pies at once, it would seem, for this championship.
Yeah, everyone's coming out to play from the Triple R, and quite a distinctive livery with the light blue and the pink. You can always tell them on track. With John Daly managing to wrestle this car around, showing us it is still quite slick out there. But you see that slightly grayer line forming in the middle of the track. As we thought, the GT4s are dispersing all of the water, and now it's going to start to become down. Do you go for those slicks, or do you start to go on dries? If anything, I think I can see a yellow band on John Daly car. Those might be slicks.
It wouldn't surprise me to see some drivers going to slicks, as the track condition is now up to greasy. You can even see that dry line there, can't you, Ryan, as we look at Matthew Kingston Lee coming around the track now. It is, fairly evident on the track. That's what the GT3 cars will be looking for, and that's exactly what they'll be happy, to go out second on this occasion for the qualifying session. The GT4s, of course, do struggle with the tyre temperature. They have to build it up basically from 0 when they leave the pit lane. So it's one of those situations in GT4 where you don't have the luxury of going out, trying to set 1 lap and then returning to the pit lane to come back out again, because in these sorts of conditions, it'll take about a good 2 to 3 laps to actually get your tyres up to temperature properly.
And with the qualifying being, maybe a shorter than desired to some of these drivers' session, it's not like as well that you can get your pressures wrong a multitude of times. Sometimes, even if you've realized you have got them slightly wrong, you just kind of have to, buckle down and deal with it and continue on, just chipping away at the times, as the conditions better. As Kingston Lee comes up to the line, it will be a 57.4, an improvement up to 10th place.
Yeah, Matthew Kingston Lee up to 10th at the moment, so good improvement for him, and it does look like it is an all Porsche front row at the moment in the GT4 class. Floris Halsford, their time of a 154.992, looking like a very, very difficult one to beat out there for a lot of the GT4s here today. And I wonder if that just, maybe comes down to a difference in setup that that Halsford is working on with that, GT4 at the moment. Do you think maybe his setup is a bit more inclined towards greasy conditions or even wet conditions? Or do you think it's maybe just a case of he's found the dry line, whereas a lot of other people seem to be struggling at the moment?
It could be either or. I know as well that the Porsche is a little bit of a strange car to handle. It has a bit of a tendency on the brakes to lock up the rear end with the differential. So some drivers can't necessarily cope with that, and it means that, you know, where you brake, your braking distances and your braking forces all change. If you can master that and you can get the car to stop behaving that way, then you can start get some speed out of it. And as we see the conditions better and better, the last few laps crossing the line, you know, Bart Matcha there with the Audi, and even the Alpines getting up onto the second row.
So as GT4 qualifying does come to an end, the GT3 cars are out on track. We're just watching Klaus Niering come towards the end of his qualifying session now, as we see one of the Porsche GT4s off onto the side of the track. And that's a good lap for Klaus Niering to end out the session, puts him up to third place in the 23 BMW M4 GT4. And it's going to get quite strange calling the BMW M4 a GT3, because there is now, of course, both a GT3 and a GT4 variant, but I'm sure we'll get used to it as the GT3 cars are now out on track, and it should be no surprise to anyone that it is the reigning Monday champion, Wolf Matuszka, who is out there first on track in the Audi, the pink performance livery that we are all so used to seeing around here. The big question is going to be, Ryan Mawson, can he make it 3 Monday championship wins in a row? Because for the first time, I think, in quite a few Monday championships, he's actually got a few people here tonight that will give him a genuine run for his money over the course of the season.
Yeah, well, if anyone is going to manage to pull that off, it is going to be Wolf. But as he says, plenty of drivers in who are going to give him a good run for the money. And also plenty of cars, the BMW M4 GT3. We haven't really talked about it much, but that is a brand new car. Bop, obviously, fully yet to be decided. And he is looking incredibly fast, especially here at Imola. And it's going to be an interesting one to see how Wolf takes this course, because it's obviously the Audi, a mid-engine car, generally quite twitchy, and Imola is a track that wants you to take the curbs, as you can already see Wolf having to fight the Audi just coming into turn 1.
Yeah, Wolf Matuszka having to fight with his car quite a lot within the first couple of chicanes here at Imola. This isn't going to be the the first time that Wolf is dealing with the Audi around here at Imola, but it's going to be interesting to see how he fares and how a lot of the other drivers fare in cars that aren't the BMW M4 GT3. It is the most popular car on the grid in both splits. It should not be a surprise, being the new thing in the ACC 1.8 update. But it will be interesting to see how a lot of the other drivers do combat that. And Wolf has gone off on his first lap, not able to get the car up to where he needs to be. It's only fast conditions out there. Of course, it has dried up from when the GT4s were out there on that damp track, but it's clear as day, Ryan Mawson, that the conditions are still not good out there, and he's decided that he needs to go back to the pit lane and reset from zero.
I think even though we've said it is dried up and the track condition may be fast, I think there is still some standing water on those painted surfaces. You could see it was coming into Aqua Minerale. You know, the car went onto the painted surfaces and just sort of washed out from under him, and you couldn't really control it. So as much as it looks nice and bone dry out there, it's still a thing to be mindful of because of the past rain that we've had.
It will be something to keep in mind of as well. A driver that we haven't talked too much about, well, we kind of did talk about Triple R coming back into the Monday Championship, but a driver or drivers we haven't really talked about too much is this duo on screen right here, or was temporarily on screen, as Billy Octane finds the barrier at the first chicane. But Harry Conway is back in a Monday Championship for the first time in a very long time, and he's going to be one of the drivers that will be looking to challenge Wolf Matuszka for that Monday Championship. He's in the Lamborghini this time around, and taking a break from the traditional Porsche that we're so used to seeing Harry in a multitude of championships, much like the Friday Championship.
Yeah, exactly. The Lamborghini and the Audi, the two cars that are the same but entirely different, and that's the only way I can describe these. Underneath the skins, they are basically the same car owned by the same company, but these two cars drive so incredibly differently. You would not think it, considering they're the same engines and setup. And if anything as well, they actually sound a little bit different. Even hearing them, in the real SRO, the Lamborghini and the Audi, they have a different engine tone, which I just find strange. I'll say that much. But yeah, Harry Conway is going to be one that is going to be harassing Wolf, I'm sure, all of this season.
He won't be the only one harassing in this season, though, because Jarkko Torvinen is finding himself in this championship as well, one of the FFS racing drivers. We're not used to seeing Jarkko around the sprint championships anymore. He was quite active during the early days of the Monday Championship, but FFS Racing have taken a bit of a break from sprint racing around RCI recently, focusing more on the enduros. But Jarkko finding some time on a Monday evening to drop on by, and he sits 5th place in qualifying at the moment, just under half a second off the top of the timing sheets. And it should be no surprise to us, Ryan Mawson, that there is 4 BMWs at the top of the timing sheets at the moment. It's proving to be a very quick car and a very popular car indeed. And, well, 16 of them on the grid here tonight, we expect. So, I mean, the odds were going to be on a BMW pole position, but it's not over till it's over, and I think the likes of Martin Lawrence, Harry Conway, Jarkko Torvinen, and even Wolf Matuszka, who are all not in a BMW today, will have something to say about that before the session's over.
Yo, Martin Lawrence already only a 1/10 of a second away, or just over a 1/10 of a second, and he's still got, a good couple of laps to throw at that, getting the pole position. But yeah, probably one of the most popular cars now in ACC, I would say, is the BMW, and I couldn't quite believe it when I did hop into the server and looked at the entry list and thought, how many cars are there actually that are different, not a BMW? And I think we have 6 or 7. I have noticed as well that one name we did forget, there is Ethan Scott in the Mercedes as well, the Soul Mercedes. So at least he can win the manufacturer championship for his car.
That's definitely true. There will be a couple of people looking at Manufacturer Championship. It'll be quite a challenge for whoever's competing in the BMW M4 Manufacturers Championship. Plenty of competition, it would seem, in that class. But no, Martin Lawrence doing good as well. Jarkko Torvinen has now jumped up to within 0.2 of a second of provisional pole, and seen Thibaut Roskam as well up into 8th place. Carlos Calatayud coming out with a very impressive lap time indeed, the Spaniard in the rules and FAQ car this season. He's done a very nice job getting himself into the Pro Split through pre-qualifying and now up into the top 5 as well. And I have to say, the biggest surprise so far for me in qualifying has to be, well, the likes of Wolf Matuszka, who not only has he not actually, found himself anywhere near the top. In fact, he hasn't set a lap until just now. But I'll take back what I said, because Wolf Matuszka will do what Wolf Matuszka usually does, and he'll leave it until the last possible second to go out there and set a lap that puts him right up into the front row.
And I think when he crossed the line as well, so long as the laps go good, I think he will actually have another lap after this one. It's going to be close. It's going to be, down to the wire. As actually Jarkko Torvinen, once again, that is an improvement up to the 2nd place, just about a 1/10 across. The BMW is now starting to be encroached in on, and it's looking a little bit more like that BMW is going to be challenged for pole position.
Definitely does. Wolf Matuszka has taken great pride in dominating the Monday Championship the last few seasons, and of course he wants to continue that on this season. We did say it looks like he'll have a lot of competition in the top class this season, and that is looking very, very likely right here in round 1. Nico Kumpu, by the way, has gone provisional pole with a 1:42.282. They have returned to the pit lane. That is their qualifying session over. The same goes for Carlos Calatayud and Terez in 15th place. They have both finished their qualifying sessions as well. Wolf has lost time and invalidated his lap coming out of Variante Alta, so he will have to go again. think you are right, Ryan. He will have plenty of time left to cross the line and set another flying lap. Here is Andy Boardman in the M4 GT3. He is also coming down towards the final couple of corners now. He's up by about a quarter of a second. He could find himself up onto the front row of the grid as well. Jaume Mas has put himself within 15 thousandths of provisional pole as well. Here comes Andy Boardman all the way up. Where will he go? He'll go up to 4th in the end. He will get an additional lap, but only just after crossing the line. So qualifying now officially into the final lap of the session.
Yes, everyone is scrabbling for the last, last possible points on the table. Vons in the 91 as well goes 33 thousandths slower. This is incredibly close between all of these drivers. And actually, looking at it, Mas did have a brief moment when he was up. It looks like he's lost it through the chicane. Could still be some time in the last few corners, but it is so hard to tell. Everyone really pushing it.
Everyone really pushing it, and another man pushing it is Billy Octane. He's sitting just over 0.3 of a second off of provisional pole. He's thrown himself up into 6th place right near the end here, and with a quarter of a second at the moment in hand, he could find himself going even further up as well. Could Billy Octane in the GT3 M4 find himself on the front row of the grid? Or even better, perhaps Wolf Matuszka is up by 0.3 of a second as well. He needs to find a bit more than that. He has found a bit more than that coming out of the final corner. It's 0.4 of a second up for Wolf Matuszka. He's lost a bit of time coming out of the final corner. Will this be pole position back for Wolf Matuszka to defend his title? Well, he's going to throw it up there to start. And Billy Octane, will he manage to beat it? No, he won't. Loses out time in the end. Marek Vons crosses the line as well. But it will be Wolf Matuszka that will take that qualifying title back for the moment. And he will assert himself back as the king of qualifying for Mondays in round 1 of the Euromasters Season 2.
Well, there you go. Did you really doubt that Wolf, as he says, at the last minute, always this driver will generally, pull it out and just absolutely blow you away with the time. But everyone is so close. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens. I think this is the first time really that I've seen a fast driver, a master of the Audi, going up against some of the BMWs. I've never really seen anyone race each other, so that will be really interesting to see as well.
It definitely will. So Wolf Matuszka then is the driver that will start pole position for the defense of his title and Season 2 of the Euro Masters. And whilst we wait for the cars to line up on the grid, we will take a very short break and be back with you just a moment for the preview of the first race of the season. Welcome back to round one of the Euromasters Season 2, and we are just about 2 minutes away from the start of the formation lap and the first race of the season. We had just about a tenth of a second between the two drivers on the front row of a grid, and that stretched down to third place as well. So the top three been 1/10 to start the first qualifying session of the season. Ryan Mawson, Wolf had to work for it right towards the end. He has been used to taking pole position in quite a few of the races in the Monday Championship, but this time he really did have the pressure on to deliver, and as per usual, he did deliver. He has to be the favourite out here to take the win tonight, but the all-important question, who do you think will be taking the honours here tonight?
As he says, it was definitely not given to Wolf to be had. You know, he definitely had to drive the wheels off of that Audi to get. I still think, though, that like you, Wolf has to be one of the favourites, not just because of his qualifying performance, you know, which is always, you know, immense at some of the ends of the end of the sessions. But in the race, you know, his consistency, he knows exactly that car. He always has a strategy that, you know, you wouldn't even think about, and just makes it work and will always come out, I think, with a strong finish. So I think that's who my money's going to be on. Be interesting to see the GT4 field, though, because I was having a think about who my favorite there would be. And honestly, with the mix of tracks and the mix of cars, you know how varied GT4 can be sometimes, I honestly don't have a clue.
The GT4 field could really be a completely open bag, couldn't it, for who could take the honours here tonight. It is interesting to see up here with Wolf Matuszka. He's got 5 BMWs between himself and Jarkko Torvinen, who is the next non-BMW driver in the field. But we also know that there's quite a few drivers in this field that are much better racers than they are qualifiers. Harry Conway qualified down in 9th place, which is unfamiliar territory, I would say, for Harry Conway. So he's going to be looking to work his way up the field as quick as possible. Watch out for Billy Octane, though, up in 5th place for Billy Octane. That is a very, very good qualifying performance, and he will be looking to capitalize on that as much as possible.
Yeah, and you know those are the two types of drivers I always find. You know, you've got the qualifiers, you've got the great racers. I know I would like to say I fall into the second category, but I don't quite know. I know that I can't do qualifying. I'll tell you that much. As everyone finally leaves the grid, I've noticed as well we have one GT3 who's not set a time, so that will be one GT3 to work his way through all of the GT4s first.
Yeah, so it was Emilio Garcia who was unfortunately disqualified for going out in the GT4 qualifying slot. So that unfortunately means for them that they broke one of the qualifying regulations, and the regulation does state that the live stewards we have here tonight have the right to disqualify you if you go out into another car class qualifying session. And of course, they are split up predominantly to avoid the classes mixing with each other in qualifying where they could hinder each other. So it's just a precaution that is put out in qualifying. It was announced to all the drivers in the briefing before the race tonight. So it's one of those mistakes where if you do miss it and you make it once, you usually don't make it again, because you don't want to be ending up behind the GT4 field on a regular basis in qualifying. And that's going to be a lot of work for Emilio Garcia right from the off.
Yeah, and for me, it'll be interesting to see the start of the GT4 field as well. As I mentioned, space on this track is at a premium with this many cars and the multi-class. It isn't really a long jaunt down to turn 1, and even if you're the pole setter of GT4, you can very easily find yourself losing it with bad traffic management. And then for the GT4s, passing around here, it gets even harder. I know there's a couple of points in a GT3 car where I would be thinking about passing. GT4s, though, the cars are so varied and so different. It's really one of those, where are you going to go, as everyone's trying to scrub some heat into the tyres. Obviously, the 1.8 update as well brought an entirely different, sort of style that you have to be on the tires. Some people are still working this out, which I'm sure they'll learn it over the season. But it will be Wolf Matuszka in the Peak Performance Audi take us under the green flag. Quite a common sight, I would say, now on Mondays.
Definitely is a common sight, but will it be a common sight to see the 25 crossing the line first come the end of the race this season? We'll have to see if Wolf Matuszka can keep up that winning streak that he has established so often in the Monday Championship. We have over 40 cars here tonight, and well, it's going to be interesting with GT3s and GT4s. This is Imola. 60 minutes of racing awaits for us here tonight in Euromasters Season 2. The first season was a fan favourite and absolutely fantastic, and we are lights out for the second season now as well. It's a good start from Jarkko Torvinen in the middle of the field, immediately trying to get through in the middle of the pack, but Wolf Matuszka has got the dream start. He's got away perfectly off the line, and he takes the lead into the first set of corners as well, through the chicane, and off he goes. Now he'll look to build that advantage as we look a bit further back through the field, looking to see what's going on, but it's all looking pretty tidy through the first couple of corners in both the GT3 and GT4 classes. We can see one of the GT3 cars that was at the back of the field already making their way through the pack, but no immediate disasters in the mid-pack yet.
No, incredibly clean, 2x2 as far as the eye can see pretty much. But yeah, Wolf with the amazing launch off the line. Obviously that Audi still being a V10 naturally aspirated. You punch the throttle, the car will go. All the BMWs that you see behind us in all of the rearview mirrors, they are turbo. They will have that little bit of lag coming out onto the corners, and actually Wolf doing a great job to gap them even before lap 1.
And doing a great job, and well, here is Martin Lawrence doing a good job as well. He's battling with John Aracer at this point in 9, the 699. It looks like Martin Lawrence is going to be on the inside, coming up towards Variante Alta. The Audi's going to be later on the brakes, a bit of contact and a bit of pushing onto the curbs as well. The flashing of the lights from John Aracer, that held up the two in the back. That was Whittle and I believe Perez as well, that we're getting in a bit of a kerfuffle. Now here is Marek Vons going for a move on Niku Kumpo earlier on, and oh, there's two BMWs caught coming out of the final corner, and that Guillaume Maus, I think it is, just getting caught up here as well. You'll see it just coming out, a bit obscured by the trees. That looks like they were turned around by one of the BMWs behind them, Ryan.
I think that someone had to take evasive action, or might have even touched the gravel. There was definitely a slowdown in front. That caused, the accordion effect, everyone coming around to more of a blind corner in some of these cars, with some of the huge A-pillars that they have, and you're strapped low down into the seats. Bit of a moment and a bit of a turn round. Has managed to get the car back going though, and luckily, if it's at the start of the race where everyone is still bunched up, you do have more of a chance of catching up. That is one of the BMW M4s off.
It is one of the BMW M4s off. This is the GT4 variant, though, of the BMW M4. Oh, just some contact there as well, and unfortunately, one of the other GT4s just unable to take avoiding action. That's Klaus Nearing that has gone off, and that's not a great start for him in the championship and in this very first round of the season. Has some work to do, but you are right. If you have an incident in the first lap, it's usually not the end of the world. There is that mandatory pit stop that everyone needs to serve, so you can go in, serve that pit stop immediately, and then get on with your race and see how much time you can pull back in some free air. And that's going to be the job that a few of the drivers are already deciding to do here. A couple of drivers also deciding to maybe pit to get out of traffic early on in the race, thinking that they can do a lot better in free air.
Yeah, and that's a strategy that we've seen multiple times. When you give this kind of more of an open strategy, there is a pit window, but it's basically the length of the race. It just stops people pitting on the last lap. You basically tell people, hey, there's a pit window, and the rest is up to you. So I'm not a, I don't hate the long strat. I've seen it played off before. It just depends if your car can do it. If I was driving a car great on endurance, I would say, yeah, go for it. But, for the likes of an Audi, as Richard Whitehall takes it to the escape road, 2 into 1 does not go. But if I was driving some of the cars that are not as good on endurance, I would be sticking to the speed option.
Yeah, and we can just see the replay there of the 957 unfortunately having to take to the grass. And here we go, Andy Boardman. I think it was Andy Boardman maybe that might have got caught up in that situation with Jaume Maz earlier on in the race. They found themselves down in 20th and 21st respectively, so towards the back end of the GT3 field. And they've got a lot of work ahead of them. Neither of them deciding to come into the pit lane then, so continuing on, believing that if they do have any damage, it's not worth repairing at this stage in the race, so they'll continue onwards, but a lot of cars ahead of them, a lot of work to do. Meanwhile, up towards the front, it is Wolf Matuszka that leads the way by 1.8 seconds to Marek Vons. And Billy Octane, who I said is one to watch out for here today, qualified 5th. He's stayed out of all the trouble that happened up towards the front at the start of the race, and he's now found himself in 3rd place, but he's 1.1 seconds ahead of Jarkko Tolvanen, who looks eager to chase him down as we continue to watch. A bit of a battle going on here between the likes of Martin Petizan and Andy Boardman. You can just see Petizan gets out of shape. Andy Boardman goes up the inside, just doesn't really take much avoiding action there. A little bit of contact. It allows Jaume Maz to take the position as well. No harm done.
Yeah, the cars were sort of parted for Maz. I'm sure will have been taking that quite gladly. And yeah, but what did we say? We did think that Wolf Matuszka would be, you know, he's a great qualifier and a great racer. Will be interesting to see, and what we do not know yet is what is the strategy. I have a feeling a lot of these cars will be doing full hour. It seems to be a lot of times that's what the favourite strategy is, but I've been wrong before.
It could be. That is usually what we do see of people when they've got clear air in front of them, when they're not being held up in traffic. They often do like to stretch the stint as long as they can, come in as late as possible. But it would seem that, you know, for a lot of drivers, if they have the ability to hit earlier, they will take that opportunity. Now, meanwhile, up at the front, things have changed a bit now. Some of the GT4s that had to come in early have meant that they've got in the way a bit of some of the GT3s at the front of the field, and now Wolf Matuszka has unfortunately found himself stuck behind 2 GT4s at places that aren't exactly ideal, and he's lost quite a bit of time to Marek Vons in the M4 GT3 behind him. You can also see Marek Vons just getting through there, sneaking through a Variante Alta on a GT4 car, and that's kept him within 0.4 of a second of Wolf Matuszka. So now what was a 1.8 second lead has disappeared to about 0.4 of a second for Wolf Matuszka, and this is one of those elements that we did talk about, Ryan, in qualifying. How much your ability to navigate traffic and where you catch the traffic is going to dictate your pace today.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of the GT3 drivers were thinking that they might have quite a bit more of a break. I'm sure some of them will have liked that, to have quite more of a break before reaching the traffic. But this is the way that the cookie crumbles sometimes. And Wolf having to defend that back again. It does for the BMW drivers, for Marek Vons. You know, it keeps him within the slipstream range. I'm sure I'll be quite happy with that. But looking up the timing board on the left, it is still Wolf Matuszka with the fastest lap in the race.
Yep, Wolf Matuszka still with that fastest lap of the race, but he will be fully aware that Marek Vons is now behind him and trying to keep up with him as well. And Billy Octane's been dragged into that battle as well, as there we go, Andy Boardman and Richard Whittle involved in an accident together. This is up towards the top of the circuit. Oh, Andy Boardman just clipped the curb on the inside. Those yellow anti-cut curbs, just clipped it on the inside. Was trying to go as tight as possible to the edge of the corner. Just clipped it and tagged the back of the 957, and unfortunately that's both of them around. And for Andy Boardman today, it's not an ideal start to the championship. Already involved in an accident on the first lap, and now involved in another accident again for him. It's just looking like a first round to forget, really.
Yeah, it's looking that way as we sort of switch back to some of the GT4. This is Martin Ulrich, and that is Nordqvist behind in the Alpine, which is a very sideways Alpine, just showing off the side of that car. I always think that that's like a small fly buzzing around a car, you know what I mean? They're so small. Look at how big this Audi is, this Mercedes is in the front. But very good to save that. The Alpine as well, I think, is pretty much rear-engined. They call it mid, but I'm not sure.
Is it big enough to be to be mid-engine?
Yeah, I suppose when if you put the engine of the whole car, you know, it's just what position is the engine in?
Well, as the GT3s continue to work their way through some of the traffic, there are plenty of GT4s on the other side of the circuit that they won't have to navigate their way through yet, and there was a bit of chaos going on towards Tosa. I saw Billy Octane had to take a bit of avoiding action against one of the GT4s, just saw one of them move across because it was trying to defend from another car behind, and had a bit of a scary moment, but all is good. No contact between either of the cars, and they'll continue onwards as they are. Wolf Matushka continuing to try and stretch that gap. We're looking back from Daniel Chermak's car at the moment. You can see Martin Petisen just in behind him, and he's making his way through some of the GT4 traffic. That's Klaus Nearing. He's just managed to work his way past at this moment in time. And you can kind of see here, Ryan, where if you can get past a GT4 at the ideal time, you can really put your foot down. It really does allow you to stretch your legs over some of the cars behind that just have to wait a bit to get past them.
Yeah, traffic management is going to be key, and that is Martin Lawrence. That is the 171 Connection Lost Racing Team with heavy damage to the front of that Audi. We're going to see, well, the race replay shows he still had that damage coming toward the back half of the lap. That must have happened in the first half. But what I was going to say as well, when we were looking up from the back of that, the wing view of that Porsche, that is an engine tone that you know, it reminds me of times when the Porsche used to be the only car that we saw on the grid. Remember those days?
Definitely do remember those days. I mean, I when I first started getting into ACC, it was the dawn of the McLaren when it had first reached with that McLaren Shadow event, if anyone remembers that, and there were concerns about how much quicker it was than everything else, and there was pre-qualifying at Silverstone, and people were talking about BOP, and then of course it got nerfed into the ground, and then the Bentley had its moment to shine, followed by the Porsche, and like you said, every car has pretty much had its moment to shine yet. And, you know, at the moment it looks like it's the BMW M4 GT3's moment, but how long will that last? We never know, with the official BOP probably coming out sometime in April, when the real-life season starts. So we'll have to see how all of that shapes out over the course of the coming months. But right here, right now, it is looking very, very competitive. And, you know, we've got 20 kilos on this BMW M4 GT3 you know, out here today, Ryan, but it's clearly not hindering Marek Von's much, is it?
Oh, Marek Von's managing to stay glued to the back of this Audi bumper. I'm pretty sure that the grille is a big controversy for some people. Some people like the styling, and others not so much. I'm pretty sure that you know, that Wolf by the end of it is going to be sick of seeing that huge snout in his rearview mirror. And here we go, GT4 traffic coming into turn one. That is Nico Kumpu being passed by another one of the BMs, and that is a big, big slide coming out of turn one.
Definitely is a big slide coming out of turn one, and here now with Nico Kumpu just trying to get his way through, and one of the kind of situations that you dread as a GT3 driver coming across GT4 traffic, that you're just having to thread your way through them at almost any opportunity, because you have GT3s around you trying to get past you, ones that you're trying to catch, and you don't want to lose off the back of them as well. So very, very difficult to deal with. And oh, Carlos Calatayud has been hit with a drive-through penalty. That looks like speeding in pit lane. This is Emilio Garcia, who was the GT3 that started all the way at the back of the field. They've gone off at the second chicane, and that looks like it's going to be a retirement for the number 17 car, which was running up in 15th place by the looks of it. So they weren't doing too bad, but no, the 30 of Carlos Calatayud has a drive-through for speeding in the pit lane, so they came to serve that mandatory stop, and unfortunately sped in the pit lane. That means they'll have to take another drive through, and Carlos Glacier will be very, very frustrated about that.
Both the connection lost Audis as well that we see on screen, the GT3 and the GT4. Sort of the big brother and the little brother going along as Bart as well, or Martin Lawrence even using all of the top of the circuit that he is allowed. But yeah, drive-throughs at Imola, that is not a uncommon occurrence. The pit entrance here is quite vicious and it is easy to miss the mark. I remember when this track was first launched, and no one really knew where the pit entry was. And my friend, he sped just a little bit, and I'll say this again, just a little bit, at 140 kilometers an hour in the pits, which I think is slightly over the pit limit speed.
Well, Carlos Glacier unfortunately having to deal with that drive-through penalty. We'll hope that it's the last drive-through penalty we see today. And looking further down the grid as well, just been watching some of the cars that have been coming around. We've got the likes of Harry Conway and Jake Boswell preparing to do battle for 5th place at the moment. Harry Conway's found himself 5.2 seconds off of Jarkko Torvinen right now. And Jake Boswell just been closing in lap after lap after lap. And, well, Harry Conway is going to find himself in a bit of a defensive situation sooner rather than later against the likes of Jake Boswell. And Jake Boswell, usually the one out here broadcasting the Monday Championships, but he's been given a little bit of a break. He can go out there and race. He'll be broadcasting the Diamond Drive Cup when that returns in February. So always nice to see some new people coming out and getting involved in the racing as well.
Yeah, this seems to be sort of the part of the Broadcasters Cup as well. As you mentioned, we've got Jesse Lee in the AM category. Everyone who is allowed to race this time has been given the opportunity, so interesting to see who's people around, and another sort of team duo in the colours as well. But look at that size difference between the Lamborghini and the BMW. I mean, the Lamborghini is not exactly a tiny car, but that BMW is gigantic.
I remember seeing a comparison where someone said that the BMW M4, if you measure it from front to back, it's actually longer than the M6 one, only slightly. So somehow BMW have managed to make a smaller, a car that should be a smaller M series bigger than than its predecessor. But if it works for BMW, then you know, more power to them. They're not exactly unknown for making large cars, with the BMW M8 GTE being one of the most popular examples of large BMW cars. Andy Boardman has the first time penalty of the race, by the way. 15-second penalty has been handed out to the number 69, and that one is for an incident that he had on lap 1 turn 18. That is the one that we saw with Jaume Maus earlier on in the race. 15-second penalty handed out for that one. I think that was one that we probably saw coming, Ryan Mawson, but it is good to get clarification from the stewards that that was worthy of penalty. And Andy Boardman, he'll be frustrated with himself, but I'm sure he understands why the penalty was given, and he'll move on and hope that he can have a better race from this point forwards. Marek Vons, in fact, I've just seen on my timing board, has found himself in the pit lane. So the number 91 that was chasing down Wolf Matuszka, he's decided to come into the pit lane, Ryan Mawson, and I wonder if this is strategy to say to himself, if I get clear air, I think I can outpace Wolf.
Yeah, possibly, and you know, as a driver, you can use the relative as well. It did kind of look like they were starting to come into a clump of GT4s. You can see on the map to the right, our track map, the triangle is actually the race leader. It's kind of confusing now after some of the updates, but that is where the race leader is. You see that big clump of GT4 traffic right in front? I think that Marek Vons has decided that now is the time to get rid of your pit, back out into the clear air, and yeah, it'll be very interesting to see where he comes out if he can keep the lap times up.
It is definitely something worth noting that, you know, as they catch up to that GT4 traffic, you know, when is the best time to pit? A lot of the GT4s have decided to get their pit stops out of the way early. In fact, all the GT4s ahead are the GT4s that haven't decided to get their pit stops out of the way early in the race. Billy Octane, 1.6 seconds. He still has the fastest lap of the race, by the way. That illustrated by the purple icon on his position in the race. So Billy Octane still with the fastest lap at this point, and that shows that he's got plenty of pace left in this car up to this moment in time, and Jake Boswell not being left behind by Harry Conway here at the moment. They're both fighting for 4th place at this time because of Marek Von's early entry into the pits. We're almost 20 minutes into this race, Ryan, and I have to say, I was half expecting Wolf Matuszka to drive off into the sunset, but I was also half hoping we would have a very interesting race tonight with a battle for the lead, and I'm happy to say we look like we have the latter.
It did briefly look like that Wolf was going to just drive away, but you know, that GT4 traffic brought the BMW back into the slipstream range, and then he just never sort of managed to get away, as we see more of the GT4 Fracade. That's one of the little Alpines being bullied out of the way by the swarm of BMWs, and everyone up the top of this section in the GT4 traffic, the battle for some of the leads, taking the alternate line, I would say.
And we've got, well, some pretty bad news for anyone who is a fan of Connection Lost Racing, the 404 or the 171. Well, for the 404, it has not gone good. They came in to serve their mandatory pit stop. They sped in the pit lane, and it's a pretty serious speeding in pit lane infringement, Ryan, because it's an SG30 that Race Control have handed out to the 404. So Bart Matcher, unfortunately, that is pretty much a race over, an SG30. Obviously, Bart will continue onwards, but he's going to struggle to get a good result from tonight's race with an SG30 on his tally as well. And I believe Gegli Gaspar in the 81 has just received a drive-through penalty, causing a collision. The 81 gets a penalty for taking out the 222 on lap 1, turn 7. So that's not actually something that we'd seen on the first lap of the race as we were watching everything unfolding. But it looks like Gegli Gaspar receiving a drive-through penalty for a takeout on the first lap of the race. The stewards have got themselves down to that one, and he will be taking another trip down pit road before this race is over.
Yeah, and I mean, what did I say? I didn't think that it would be our final speeding in pit lane. It's just Imola. This happens so many times, and this is a moment as well that you never want to have as a GT4 driver. Harsvort versus Svenček in the 107. You're trying to battle, you're trying to have your own race, and just look in the mirror. It's GT3 cars everywhere. Where do you go? And one of the BMWs, the 818, is up the outside, but twitches all over, trying to keep the car on the track.
And that's one of those situations that terrifies you as a GT4 driver when you see a car look like it's really going to throw it down the inside. And I do almost wonder if the 818 did think about throwing it up the inside, but then thought better of it, got a bit caught on the curve and unsettled as well, and just had to try and rescue that one. Martin Petit's watching all of that from his cockpit. An interesting view to see how, you know, the drivers perceive everything that's going on around them as well. This is Nico Kuizma here at the moment, the number 12. He's down in 11th place at this point. He's still yet to come into the pit lane. You know, not sitting too bad at the moment, but he'll be hoping he can find himself a bit further up the order by the time he has to come into the pit lane. Marek Vons is the highest up of the drivers that have come in and served their mandatory pit stop. He's found himself in nice clean air, about 10.9 seconds, the next GT3 ahead of him.
Yeah, so I think that might actually start to play off with Marek Vons. Obviously, every single GT4 that Wolf has to pass, you know, is a potential slowdown. Like I said, you've got to pick your moment very, very carefully. You come in too early, you actually might end up having to pass the GT4s twice. You pass them, and then they come into pit. You end up coming out right behind them again. It's such a, you know, such an delicate battle that you have in multi-class racing, and that is another one of the BMWs off at the second hairpin.
It is another one. It's Martin Petitsen, isn't it? We just saw from his perspective. Oh, and just tapped around by one of the Mercs, I believe that was. And Martin Petitsen, this is one of the worst situations you can be in at Imola when you found yourself right there, because you have to reverse onto the track. it's not really an ideal situation. Meanwhile, Martin Lawrence, he's trying to work his way back up through the field after serving his mandatory pit stop. And looks like he's made his way past the BMW rather comfortably there. I believe that's Rudy Philmonter. He's made his way past the South African, and yep, that is confirmed as crosses the sector line and jumps up in 17th. So Martin Lawrence making his way up. He's the third highest of the GT3 completed those pit stops. And it was Ethan Scott actually that looked like the car that tapped the back of Martin up towards Tosa. So unfortunate situation, but the stewards will have to look into it, see what they deem of it. But all Ethan Scott can do at the moment is keep on racing.
And Ethan Scott can keep his foot welded to the firewall. That big V8 Mercedes really trying to reel in the BMW ahead. I remember as well when this used to be the car that you had to go racing at Imola. If you wanted to race at Imola, you needed the Merc 2020. That bright light fizzled out pretty quickly as well. But you know, good to still see one. I like the fact that this car, you know, still has, I think, the biggest engine in the grid. It's a 6.2 litre. As much as Merc don't want to say it, it is.
Yeah, seems to be a few shenanigans going on with the spec sheets for some of these cars. I have been watching some of the stuff that's going on up ahead. Billy Octane has actually dropped off the back of Wolf Matuszka through all that GT4 traffic. He's now about 5.2 seconds off of the race leader, and the traffic does seem to have split up quite a few of the GT3s at this point now. There's gaps between the likes of Harry Conway and Jake Boswell, and quite a few gaps all around it. In fact, apart from his, Nico Kuizma's going to go off at Variante Alta. Ethan Scott's going to go through. Also going to be another GT3 going through there as well, and that's going to open up Nico Kuizma to the likes of, is that Teres in behind? That's going to now try and find his way through as well, and there's contact between the two of them. Teres and Kuizma come together at the bottom of the circuit. We're going to see it on a replay here now from Saba Teres' perspective, trying to find his way through, just braking into the corner. He's turning his turn, but he's so late on the brakes, Ryan. You have to wonder if it was one of those situations where he braked late, just hoping that Kuizma would back out of the move.
Yeah, braking late, and also already starting the braking as the turn in, and that is once again, I think that is Kuizma once off into the gravel at turn 1. There it is, that is the Nico Kuizma taking it to the escape road, the number 12. But yeah, one of those, as soon as you start your braking, you know, while still turning, that is just a recipe for disaster. The ABS will kick in and extend your braking distances, you know, at least 2 to 3 times sometimes.
John Aracer up here in 6th place. He's been handed a 15-second penalty as well. And looking through the penalty reports here, they're coming from Connor in race control. The 699 has been given a 15-second penalty for making contact with the 957 and forcing them off the track. This causes them to lose multiple positions. So John Aracer getting a bit too physical out there with the 957 of Richard Whittle, and he was deciding that they needed to take some action in that case. This is Nico Kuizma. A bit of a replay here, and oh, that's Bart Matcher. He's just come across the front of. And that's one of those situations, Ryan, where is he maybe looking at the radar that he has up above him. He thinks he's clear of Bart Matcher. He's moved across, and he hasn't actually been clear. And oh, there we go. That's Eric Engman, who has been, looks like he's been checked in the side by a BMW M4 GT3. Now, that could be any of 16 cars on the grid, but we know it was a particular white and green shade. We'll have to see if we can find out exactly who that was. But it seems like now, Ryan, after the... where we would expect a lot of things to start calming down in the race, everyone's starting to get a little physical with each other.
Yeah, it seems that the GT3 on GT4 violence has started to pick up. Well held by Bart, though. You know, it was a very nice controlled slide across the glass across the grass into Aqua Minerale and out again. But yeah, quite a few GT3, GT4 incidents. I think the problem is that the people who have already picked their strategy, as it were, and have pitted, are now so conscious
on making it work that, they're just trying everything that they can. Speaking of people who make their strategy work, here is Marek Vons, leader of the cars who have pitted, and the car that was chasing down Wolf Matuszka. Pitted early to try and undercut Wolf Matuszka, but we'll see if that pays off when Wolf finally does come in. I'm expecting, though, that won't be for at least another, 25 minutes.
Yeah, Wolf looks like he wants to extend this right towards the end of the race, and, well, if that's his strategy and it works out for him, there's no reason for him to deviate from that at this moment in time, but you will have to wonder how much time did he lose going through, that queue of GT4 cars, compared to the likes of Marek Vons, who has waited for those GT4s to kind of separate themselves a bit so that he can get that clean air, well, to try and maximize his opportunity to put in some fast laps. It will be great to see how this develops towards the end of the race. We are at the halfway point at this stage, and we'll have to see how it all does pan out at the moment. Nico Kuzma closing down on Chermak at this point, the number 12 car chasing down the 13. And funny enough, position 12 and 13 in the field as well. Just the two cars are the opposite way round at the moment. Can Nico Kuzma do anything about that right now, though? Finds himself the 0.4 of a second behind the likes of Chermak right now. And I do continue to look down the field here, Ryan Mawson. We've got two GT4s that are yet to come into the pit lane. That is Henneberg and Schwencek. They've clearly decided that they want to go as long as possible, whereas in the GT3 class, obviously 13 cars having decided that they want to stick it out at the moment and not go in. So it definitely seems like in the GT4 class, a lot more drivers keen on getting that pit stop out of the way early.
Yeah, well, I'm wondering as well. The GT4 cars can be quite susceptible to fuel loads as well. I'm wondering if that might be the quicker strategy, is to go with more of a half and half, or even even a super low fuel load at the start to kind of get yourself some space and get it out, and then let the race come to you. Whereas Henberg and Svenchek, they've decided to keep the cars tanked up and go long. Interesting to see what that does. I know of the strategies in GT3, not really sure in the world of GT4. It's also strange that basically anything could go and work for you.
Yeah, in the GT4 class, the strategy can be a bit different, but looking at the way it's panned out at the moment, a lot of them, they do want to get that pit stop out of the way early, and I wonder if some of them may be getting that pit stop out of the way early in an attempt to avoid some of the GT3 cars, perhaps, but we'll have to see how that has worked out for some of them. This is Andros Sarka. This was the car that went into the side of Eric Engman earlier on, that we were unsure about, the 818. So Andros Sarka. Oh, and Andros Sarka has made a mistake as well. Have they clipped the inside at the top of the circuit? It looks like they have. Have they done exactly what Andy Boardman did? They were trying to get through on a GT4. They were trying to cut right across the anti-cut curbs and went sideways across. And I mean, Ryan Wilson, we've seen good examples and bad examples of trying to get past GT4s in the past. You're going to have to put that one into the one of the poor examples as well. When you're that close to a GT4, right behind them, and there isn't room on the inside line, it just seems like a bit of a silly situation to put yourself in.
Yeah, the GT4s are, they're always told as well in the driver briefing, be predictable and hold your line. Take the racing line. If you've not made the move by the corner, you kind of have to accept it, and it looks like big aero damage for that BMW all over the place is Sarka in the 818 coming out of the final corner. What kind of made me chuckle, though, is that was a big heavy hit M4 into the door of the M4 GT4. The GT4 car kind of just shrugged it off and took a little bit of a wider line, and that completely destroyed the GT3 car.
Yeah, the GT4's a lot more, durable, should we say. They can take a bit more of a beating when it comes to damage compared to the GT3 cars. Of course, that's the trade-off that you have when your car is less dependent on aerodynamics. It doesn't really matter as much if you pick up some damage on those elements of the car compared to the GT3s that, you know, they do use aerodynamics a lot more GT4s do. So, you know, when you get damage on the car, like we can see right now on the 273 of Martin Petitson, it does start to affect the car a lot more. And this is Giggly Gaspar trying to find a way through. Giggly Gaspar with a 10-second penalty at the moment, which he will have to serve when the race ends. He's already done his mandatory pit stop, so that will be added on to his race time come the end.
Yeah, so just trying to eliminate that, and it's an interesting proposition when you are the driver, like Petitson in that 273. You know, you can fight as much as you want, but you could also say that, you know, there is no point because that driver in front has got the 10-second, but that is not what Martin Petitson is doing. He's up the outside, very anti-chicane, tries it, but there is not a move there. BMW ahead of Giggly Gaspar, the 81. Just starting to disappear off into the distance.
So Giggly Gaspar gets themselves in front of Martin Petitson, and now they have to find 10 seconds between themselves and Petitson behind if they want to keep that position come the end of the race. Andy Boardman is into the pit lane. He's got 30 seconds worth of penalties that he needs to serve when he comes in to do his stop. John Aracer, who has come into the pit lane already and has served the 15-second penalty that they were hit with by the steward, so he's out into 18th place. A few more GT3s getting those pit stops done. Now, a bit further back, this is a bit of a triple R on triple R for the Academy drivers at the moment. Phil Roberts against Jordan Daly. Both of them in the Merc GT4, both of them being passed by the BMW M4 GT3 of the 222. I'm not entirely sure who that is. Oh, that's Schumann, actually, in the 222. But yeah, we have a Triple R Academy battle on track at the moment. So they're both in equal machinery, Ryan, unlike the two Triple R boys in the GT3 class. And Phil Roberts was doing pretty well earlier. Jordan Daly, I know, had a difficult qualifying session, so he started towards the back of the GT4 field. But they've both found themselves towards the latter end, unfortunately, and this is just one of those situations where you know your race hasn't gone well, you're not going to get much more enjoyment out of it, you might as well have a good battle while you can.
Yeah, and in match machinery, it makes it that little bit difficult. You have to wait for small mistakes like this. Jordan Daly up the inside of the chicane. It is very close, and actually that's going to be Phil Roberts taking to the escape road. And Jordan Daly just swung wide to the outside of the circuit, still thinking he was there, but the battle continues as it was. Like I said, these are the kind of micro mistakes you have to wait for and, you know, try. That is why I said GT4 passing here is actually very difficult. Get little moments like that where in a GT3 car, that movement would have been, you know, said and done before the chicane. GT4 is still happening.
Yeah, and those two will be in voice comms with each other as well, so I'm sure there'll be plenty of banter and shouting at each other as well. Meanwhile, in the GT4 class, two Porsches going at it with each other, and Derek Engman back in the pit lane, I wonder, was that? But doesn't. Oh, so Eric Engman has reset to pits, I've been told, so obviously something has gone wrong with that car, and that is quite unfortunate for him. And it looks like Chermak in the 13 has got a stop and go 30. Now, we've seen a stop and go 30 being handed out before. That was handed out by the ACC in-game race control for speeding in the pit lane, and I'm pretty sure, Ryan Mawson, that this SG30 is also for speeding in the pit lane. So that looks like 3 drivers today hit by penalties for being too fast in pit lane.
Does look like it, you know, flicking through the piece of paper that we got for the reports, nothing mentioned of it. So yeah, another speeding in the pit lane. It's one of those, you know, where you're trying to maximize all the time that you've got. But after the 1.8 update, the pit limit, you know, the pit speed limits were updated, and they were much more strict. And we kind of were seeing that tonight with one of the more evil tracks on it as the BMW is late on the brakes, past 2 GT4s into turn 1 and still makes it stick. That is a brave, brave move.
Eric Vons absolutely fearless into the first chicane. Let's have a look at the onboard here. Coming up to lap one of the Audis, or not lap, get past one of the Audis rather. But then look at this, absolutely committed to the corner and didn't actually, you know, break anywhere out of the ordinary. Still made the corner, made the apex, you know, completely, but had a lot of trust in those GT4 cars to, you know, keep to their lines, stay on the outside as he made his way through. And well, it could be Ryan Wilson, but when we get towards the end of this race, if Wolf Matuszka pits and Marek Vons comes out ahead, it could be a move like that that could have been the critical moment where he could have won or lost the lead.
Exactly, and that is what, you know, it takes. That is the type of driver that is going to take it to Wolf Matuszka. It's drivers like Marek Vons, moves like that where, you know, you just don't see moves like that every single day. That is, you know, a phenomenal driver. They knew the car, knew the track, and practiced it, and had complete faith in what they were doing and where they were going. So, fantastic move there. That type of driving is certainly going to save him some time.
Yeah, we'll have to see how much time it does save him in the end as he continues onwards. This is on board with Andreas Vergoslen. This is one of the Porsches in the GT4 class. All them battling earlier on. Then battling with Eisenforce in the 85 at the moment, which is on board with them for the time being as they close in on each other. And looking a bit further up the GT4 class, I believe it is everyone in the GT4 class has now come in and served their pit stop, so they're all exactly where they should be in terms of their strategy, and it is Calandrino leading the way in the GT4 class, 3.5 seconds ahead of the likes of Mikael Sundström in the Alpine. And Mikael Sundström has done a very, very good job of getting that car up into second place. And then it is Peter Henneberg in third in the GT4 class. So 3 different manufacturers in the top 3 of the GT4 class. That is always great to see. And 3 cars that are built in completely different ways to each other.
Yeah, so the Henneberg was the car that started to go long, and we thought that he might go all the way to the end of the race. Obviously not, it's dipped in now, but I wonder if that strat has actually slightly hurt him. You know, the lap times look good, but 2 seconds behind Mikael Sundström, who I think was one of not the first cars to actually dip in and try and, you know, grab that clean air. It worked quite well for the 899, and like I said, always brings a smile to my face seeing an Alpine, you know, that far up. Rarely see them.
They are definitely one of the rarer cars out in the GT4 field. I can definitely, you know, attest to what you said. I love seeing them out. I think they're a great little car. And Ethan Scott has just come out of the pit lane, and he also has a drive-through penalty for speeding in pit lane. Some people are collecting them like we did today, Ryan Mawson, but Ethan Scott, who was doing, you know, wasn't doing too bad for himself, he's now managed to pick up that drive-through as well. And I do wonder, it has been a while since the update was brought out, and those pit stop, or not pit stop, but pit entries rather, you know, were modified so that they couldn't be abused as much. Yeah, do you think, Ryan, this is just, you know, a collection of drivers that are just trying to push everything they have to the limit? Or is it just a few people that, you know, maybe just haven't quite got around the fact that you can't get away with some of the exploits that you could before?
I would say probably a bit of both. You know, drivers that know that they want to save, you know, that little bit here and there, and that it used to be, so long as you had the pit limiter engaged when you came in, you know, as long as you weren't excessively speeding when you went over the line, the game would still count it and you would be fine. Now it is not. You have to be at the pit limit, you know, at that line. And Imola is not exactly a nice track for the pit entry. It's very easy to miss the line. You know, there's a barrier and a wall on each side. As soon as the line disappears from your view, you've got to hope that you're already at that speed. So doesn't surprise me, and we'll see when the drivers, if they slowly learn coming towards the end of the season. And here is Nicholas Nordqvist on the back of Christopher Verstappen. There's the 747 Audi being hounded by the little Alpine. You can kind of see though where the Alpine, it struggles over the curbs. You know, these last chicanes really gain a lot if you can take more curb, but in the Alpine, that is just not possible.
Yeah, so Norquist at the moment just trying to keep in touch with the likes of Christopher Verstappen. Here is Jordan Daly and Phil Roberts in a replay as well, and looking like this is Andy Boardman going down the inside here, and Andy Boardman going to make the corner? No, not quite. Has to be going wide there, and I'm sure that Jordan Daly and Phil Roberts won't appreciate that too much. Jordan Daly ahead of Phil Roberts, now overtook him earlier on in the lap, it would seem, but Phil still determined to stay on the end. And this is one of those, one of those situations where you just have to take what you can get, and if you're not going to have too much happen for the rest of the race, make the most of the battle while you can. But looking a bit further down, Botmatch is about 8.6 seconds off this battle. Of course, he had to serve a stop and go 30 for speeding in the pit lane earlier on. And he's unfortunately pretty much as far down as you can be, besides Eric Engman, who had to return to the pits for some unknown reason earlier on in the race. It has not been a great race for a few of the GT4 drivers out here at this stage. Ethan Scott is into the pit lane to serve his drive-through penalty, and we continue to watch the GT4 Triple R Academy cars battle it out with Jordan Daly and Phil Roberts. I mean, they're putting on a show with each other for the crowd out here today, Ryan Mawson, and I dare say a few people at home are probably enjoying this.
Oh, it's going to be a battle all the way to the end, and like I said, both these drivers very familiar with each other, matched machinery, and oh, and here we go, coming up to the back. Look, we have the Triple R 1, 2, 3, 2 GT4s, and there goes the Lamborghini.
Harry Conway making his way through. He's in 4th place at the moment, still to pit, of course. His teammate Billy Octane currently sitting in 2nd place. I mean, Triple R will be hoping that there's a team championship at some point coming in Mondays, because they're doing pretty well right now. But the battle continues between the two Porsches in GT4, down in 34th place overall. Andreas Verstappen still closing in on Ace and 4th. There's been around this gap for a while now, and there's Andy Boardman just in behind. Billy Octane a bit further back from them, so that is the 2nd place car in the background. Billy Octane will be making his way up towards them at the moment. He's dropped off from the likes of Wolf Matuszka. It was about 10.6 seconds. It's now closed down to 9.1. Not expecting Billy to just all of a sudden close that gap, but he has been able to close it when Wolf has been caught up in traffic, but it just looks like Billy hasn't had the consistent pace today, despite still having that fastest lap of the race. And Wolf Matuszka, if he's gonna win, the championship this season, he's gonna need as many points as he can get, and he's been quite used to picking up pole position and fastest lap points on a regular basis, but maybe not looking like he can pick those up as consistently anymore, with some of the M4 cars like Billy Octane really looking like they can take that fastest lap away from him.
Yeah, obviously it's much easier to gain control of a championship, if you start out strong and you amass a lot of points very quickly. We've seen quite a few times in RCI championships where people who gather all the points very quickly on, they're just impossible to catch by the end. How many times have we said, coming into either the final race or the race before, the championship is provisionally decided due to this. It wouldn't surprise me if Wolf would be one of the drivers to do that, but definitely going to have to work for it. You still don't know where that car of Marek Von's is.
Yeah, that is something I have been trying to work out over the last few laps. I'm unfortunately not as proficient with a calculator and a set of pen and paper like Jesse Lee is, unfortunately. Jesse Lee racing at the moment in the AM class, or the AM split rather, for the Euromasters Season 2. But either way, I have been, looking around and trying to figure out, and if I can see exactly where Marek Vons is, I know that where he is at the moment, he's not a million miles off of Wolf Matuszka, and when Wolf comes into the pit lane, he only has to do 1 liter of fuel. That's all he needs to take, at this stage. But it's going to be interesting to see if Marek Vons has managed to keep that gap enough to the point where he can take that position back. As for what the fastest lap of the race is, I'm just seeing someone asking in the chat. Billy Octane has it at the moment, and it is a 1:42.570, and in fact that's 1/10 faster than what this man right here has managed as his fastest lap of the race. Wolf is using a 1:42.670. So Billy Octane has the fastest lap of the race, but only by a 10th over Wolf Matuszka. But it looks like Wolf is really, really struggling to find that extra 10th of a second.
And we might have already passed, that optimum moment with the new tyres. There is sort of a golden moment when you have the optimum grip, the optimum fuel level, and especially with the Audi, it's a mid-engine car. Balance, once you've got the fuel load right and the balance of the car is perfect, I think that is when you're going to set your optimum lap. But 50 minutes in with just under 10 minutes to go on the clock, I think we might have passed that moment as one of the M4s. That's Nico Kumpu taking big avoiding action to not get into the GT4s, coming down into the last few corners. We'll see from the onboard. Here you go, Lamborghini in front, goes through the GT4s, and everyone checks up and has to take avoiding action.
Yeah, Andreas Vic Gosselin just moving over there, and Nico Kumpu will not be happy with that. I mean, you wouldn't be happy with that, in any situation. Never mind a car in a different class that, you're not really racing for, you're just trying to get past them. And Nico Kumpu doing a really, really good job to avoid what could have been a massive accident down towards Rivazza as well. So good job on him. He's sitting 19th at the moment. Hasn't been the greatest race for Nico Kumpu, but plenty of the season left to go. Xiaomi Maz has come into the pit lane, by the way, and he has served his pit stop. He's just on his way out at the moment, and he's taking that long, grueling drive from the end of the pit boxes to Imola to where the actual line is that you can get out of the pit lane. Imola being one of those tracks where the actual pit, boxes quite short. There's not that many of them, but the actual road in and out of pit lane is excruciatingly painful to drive along because it's so long.
Oh yeah, it's one of the longer pit lanes, and you just sort of sat thinking, when will it end? There's plenty of pit lanes that I can think are worse. I think the king of all those has to be Spa, but I know another annoying one that kept a lot of people out is Misano. That's always an interesting pit lane to sit behind, because how many people take the pit limiter off when you're actually only halfway down?
Yeah, Misano can definitely be one of those. Billy Octane into the pit lane, by the way. We're on board with Marek Vons, so one of the podium sitters into the pits. And now, where Billy Octane comes out in respect to Marek Vons is going to be interesting, because that will give us a good idea of how close Marek Vons is to the likes of Wolf Matuszka. So Billy Octane was about 10 or 11 seconds behind the likes of Wolf Matuszka. Now, I believe that is, that's Marek Vons. He's gone straight past. And Billy Octane is still rolling and rolling and rolling. He's finally got to the end now. But Marek Vons is well up the road and out of the way. And the big question is going to be, is that gap between the likes of Marek Vons and Billy Octane greater than 12 seconds? If it is, Wolf Matuszka has to get his foot down.
It is going to be incredibly tight. I think it's as well going to be one of those you need from Wolf. You need the perfect stop. If he has to get shuffled at all when he comes into the pits, or slightly hesitates on the pit limiter here or there, this is where it could be decided. We also not really much been paying attention because he's been in his own little bubble. It's going to have been who has been managing the GT4 traffic better, and that's probably one of the most scary moments as a driver. But the driver you're battling behind you peels off. You then have no idea what's happening, what they're doing until you see them again right at the end.
And we'll have to see then where Marek Vons does, come out in. One thing for sure is he is going to at least be in second place because he's come out well ahead of where Billy Octane is. So Billy Octane, who will now be fighting to keep himself in third position towards the end of this race, has not got too much to worry about as his teammate Harry Conway is now in the pit lane as well. And Harry Conway rolling again. Sabasere is coming down at the moment. He's following the likes of Marek Vons. He's got that 10-second time penalty to deal with as well. Billy Octane has just passed Harry Conway, who's just reached the line now, and he can start to get that Lamborghini back up to racing speed. And oh, here we go. One of the Triple R GT4 cars. Are they going to come out ahead of him, or is Jordan Daly going to let the Lamborghini go? He's going to let the Lamborghini go. So the sister team in a different class just deciding that they don't want to hold up the GT3 in the event that Harry Conway could get an extra position out of this race. And I'm sure that Harry Conway appreciates that.
Yeah, I wonder if, as Harry Conway passes the GT4, it just gives him the glare, and the GT4 shall shuffle over. That shall be the team orders, and here we go again. Speaking of Triple Rs and GT4s, Bob Matcher trying to go around the long way around Phil Roberts at the bottom of the hairpin. The Audi does look like it's got the run. It's just about a room for another coat of paint there, trying to let the GT3s through. And there you go, Audi in front.
Oh, this is a situation as a GT3 that you really don't want to be in when you've got GT4s fighting so hard. But credit to Bart Matcher. Look how he kept it pinned on the outside line coming out of Tosa. Got the drag over the Mercedes. And but he's lost the position. And now he's just got a little bit of a side check from the Porsche in the GT3 class. And now that's Phil Roberts back in front of Bart Matcher. So I don't know what exactly happened. We're about to find out. So here we go. This is Ethan Scott coming down now, and just tags the front of Bart Matcher. And of course, that's then where the contact with the Porsche comes in as well. Bart Matcher been a bit of a magnet for GT3 cars, it has to be said today, so he won't be appreciating that too much. And he'll have to chase down the likes of Phil Roberts again, as we see Carlos Calatiad now going around the outside of Richard Whitehall and trying to get that move done. Does the Lamborghini have the drag over the BMW? Looks like it, but there's a GT4 on the outside line. Carlos Calatiad will get the move done. He'll go wide, slightly wide, but will get that move done, and he is ahead and away. And Giggly Gaspar now also trying to find his way through as well, I wonder, on the GT4. But no, it's Nico Kumpu actually in the 256. But plenty of action going on as we reach the last few minutes of the race, and as we are at the last few minutes of the race, the leader is in. And Ryan Mawson, it's time to find out who is going to be leading this race into the last couple of laps. The big question is, has Marek Vons done enough in that free air that he bought himself at the start to get a chance at a win over Wolf Matuszka in the very first round of the season?
It's definitely going to be a nail-biting moment. Wolf is still on the jacks at the moment. The car has just dropped off, and the 25 is rolling along. Looking on, 91 is coming round at the last corner. Wolf has got the long drive down the pit. It is agonizing until you get to that line, but I think might be just enough as the Audi starts to roll back up to race speed. The 91 is just about crossing the first turn.
But Marek Vons, it doesn't look like he's done quite enough yet, but it isn't over till it's over. There is still going to be a couple laps to go here out at Imola. So the big question is, can Marek Vons close that gap and get one over on Wolf Matuszka? There is a few seconds between them. He has lost time by diving into the pits early, and I wonder if maybe that will affect his strategy going forward into the season as well. Now he's going to be committed onto the outside line of Tosa, and that isn't ideal for him either. But he will have to see if he can maybe take advantage of the fact that Wolf Matuszka had to come into the pit lane. The pressures on that car have just dropped slightly. They will have to come back up a bit. The tyre temps will have faded a bit, but Marek Vons can't afford to be doing this in the final couple of laps, as that just keeps playing into Wolf Matuszka's hands.
Yeah, looking like the tyres on that BMW are starting to give off, I would say, being hounded around this circuit. Imola, quite fierce on the tyres, lots of high speed, of G-forces on the left side tyres, and only one seed today that we haven't really touched on because the weather has just been lovely, but hot enough that you can certainly cook the tyres as the Alpine gets well out of the way, wants nothing to be, doesn't want to get in the way of the leaders at all. But it's going to be white flag waved, as we can see in front. There is the pink performance car. There is the Audi. That's the gap that Marek Vons has got to close within a lap. It is a big old mountain to climb.
It is a big, big mountain to climb, but this has been one of the closest races we've had for the win in the Monday Championship for quite a while. Wolf Matuszka has really, really had to earn it here, and if this can set the tone for the season to come, the Euromasters Season 2 is going to be a very, very exciting championship indeed, as Wolf Matuszka, he will still win, he will still start his title defense with those crucial points that he needs to defend that championship. But we visit a couple of different circuits around the calendar. It's going to be interesting to see how that battle changes and if he can keep up that effort. Marek Vons at the moment in second place, looking like that's going to be his result sealed as well. And Billy Octane, big shout out to him. He's in third place at the moment, looking like he will seal that position as he has a 3.2 second lead over Jarkko Torvinen. So two BMWs looking like they'll feature on the podium, but two Lamborghinis in the top 5 at the moment at least. It has been a good start to the season, not just for BMW, but it has been a good start for Lamborghini as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll have to see what happens if strategies, people's strategies change going forward from round 1. Obviously, the Euromasters now with multi-class this time. It's thrown an extra element into the mix, which has definitely been interesting to see the drivers deal with it. Wolf Matuszka, no stranger to the endurance and multi-class racing. We'll have to see what Marek Vons does for the Connection Lost Racing in the future. But under the checkered flag, it will be the 25. It will be Wolf Matuszka to win the first round of the Euromasters.
So Wolf Matuszka picks up that first win of the season. Marek Vons will collect second and Billy Octane third, as we expected. But Billy Octane's got a 15-second penalty right before the line. That's going to change everything because Jarkko Torvinen will now be promoted onto the podium. We're going to have 3 different manufacturers on the podium come the end. Billy Octane receives a 15-second penalty right before the line. Harry Conway will cross 5th. He will go up to 4th. Schumann 6th. Boswell in 7th on his debut in the Monday Championship. Gielme Maus, who had a difficult start to the race, comes back to 8th. Martin Lawrence has a 5-second penalty to his name. He'll cross the line in 9th place over Nico Quisma in 10th, who also has a 5-second penalty, which should promote Thibaut Roskam into that top 10 come the end. In the GT4 class, it is going to look like a win for Calandrino on his debut. Henneberg looks like he'll pick up that second place, and Mikael Sundström fighting for third as well. And it looks like those 3 positions confirmed as well. So Calandrino will win in the GT4 class. He will take the points that he needs to start his championship campaign over Peter Henneberg and Mikael Sundström. And in both classes, it's going to be Ryan Wilson. We have 3 different manufacturers in the top 3.
And that goes to show, what people think might be just completely overpowered and unbeatable. There is no way that anyone could do this. That just goes to prove, in a race, everything can change.
Everything can change, and well, that is the end of round 1 here at Imola. A very, very interesting race. And, well, it has just proven that the Euromasters Season 1, which was a fantastic season, is looking like it's set up to continue with a fantastic season in Season 2. The GT4's have not disappointed as well. Billy Octane will preserve that fastest lap of the race, by the way, so he will find himself with some bonus points, but he is demoted down to 6th come the end of the race. All the penalties accounted for as well. See the full order on your screen at the moment as we cycle through it. Just all the drivers there and down to the likes of, I believe it was Eric Engman finished right towards the back of the field. Actually, no, it was Emiliano Garcia and Saka actually right at the back. Garcia having retired earlier on. Saka unfortunately disqualified for exceeding the license point limit. Well, 60 minutes of action done for the first round of the season here today. And, well, it's going to be very, very interesting when we come back in a week's time. We're heading out to Paul Ricard, or the parking lot, as a lot of people like to call it. Paul Ricard was on the calendar for the first season. And it's going to be interesting to see how everyone fares out there as well. I know that the Lamborghini boys will be looking forward to that one as well. We also have Monza, Nürburgring, Barcelona, and Spa on the calendar to see out the season as well. A lot of the big circuits, of course, with the multi-class action that we have on offer for this championship. But if, maybe multi-class isn't exactly the, thing that you have in mind for, say, a Friday evening, well, don't worry. The Friday GT3 Championship will continue on Friday evening, no less, and it will be Mike Jones and Jesse Lee in the box for you on that one. They'll be heading out to Donington Park for the second round of the championship. The Night Owl Championship will also continue on Saturday. Unfortunately, the first couple of rounds of that not being live streamed, but leave from round 3 onwards there will be live streaming for the series. The Thursday Championship still has pre-qualifying open if you fancy some GT4 only action. And we should have the live streams on Thursday for that one as well. The Diamond Drive Cup will be starting in February, and we're really excited to have that back for Season 3. Well, it has been an awfully enjoyable race for myself and Ryan Mawson to watch. A big thank you to our partners here tonight, Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and Sim Racing GP. Of course, if you're looking for all the up-to-date news on sim racing, you can go and check out Race Department, AK Informatica. Our races are hosted on their servers. Driver 61, if you want to race like Wolf Matushka and, win like a pro, you can get some Driver 61 coaching and use our discount code in the description. 25% off access to their sim racing academy. Fanatec, you already know enough about them. Some great sim racing hardware and equipment that you can get yourself, and you can use the affiliate code to give RCI a little bonus at no extra cost. And Sim Racing GP, if you're looking for a plethora of different communities across loads of different sims to get into racing with, you can check out Sim Racing GP and get started exploring your community life today. So, very big thank you to everyone for joining us for this evening. It's been a pleasure for Ryan Mawson and I to bring this race to you. We will be back next week for Paul Ricard for Season 2 Euromasters Round 2. But until then, enjoy the rest of your evening and enjoy your week.
And we will see you in France.